Hi, it is true that if you are not growing, you are dying. It is a powerful, positive, and pregnant statement. But if the truth be told, how can we still grow during this pandemic? It is true that most of us, as our speaker and our guest will say, we are not faced with a health pandemic. We're actually faced with a mental health pandemic. Today, I'm blessed to have my special friend, Dorainne Weil, who is well known as Dr. D. She's a clinical psychologist. She is also an organizational psychologist. Her media and speaking career spans more than 30 years. She hosted shows on Radio 702, South African Broadcasting Corporation, 3 Talk, print media. Her Thrive, which is a program with Dr. D podcast, and Coffee and Connect with Dr. D are powerful shows that she provides to people all over the world every week. She has offered keynote presentations to corporates and organizations, are you ready for this? In 57 countries on a variety of topics concerned with personal development, couples, and families. Some of the titles that she has presented include cholesterol-free companies. That's Dr. D for you. Cholesterol-free companies. Shift from entitlement to empowerment. Intentional relationships. The healthy family. Is there a recipe for success? Success psyche. Emotional intelligence. The deciding factor. And many, many others. She is definitely an awesome presenter and a speaker. She's obviously a sought-after panelist and presenter on mental health and post-traumatic growth. Check what Dr. Nelson Rolihlahla Madiba Mandela said about her. Listen to what Madiba said. Quote, "I don't know if you are aware of the hope and inspiration you offer and the difference you make to so many lives. Dori," that's Madiba speaking to her. "Dori, thank you for the great contribution you make to building our nation." Close quote, Nelson Mandela. So welcome to Conversation with David Molapo. Our special guest is my friend, Dr. D.
And
good to see you, young lady. You look younger and younger. What are you smoking?
Oh, I love the young lady. No, it's such a pleasure to see your face and to be with you. I have such fond memory of the exciting times that we had when we hosted that show, Positive Leap, on SABC 3 Talk, and we were the double D.
Dorainne and David.
Dorainne and David, and it was a fabulous time. And I think that we connected, we did exciting things, we made a difference. And that's what we're doing here again now. So we've come full circle, and we're taking it further. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for those kind words. You've made a difference in my life and in the lives of many people. But today we are dealing with an interesting topic. I always maintain that tough times don't last, tough people do. But your theme or your topic today is life is tough, but I'm tougher. How did you come to end up coining that topic?
Look, I think it is what you said. We are going through a tough time, and we have to recognize it. You know, I always say that if you don't own the story, you can't define the ending. If you don't own it, it owns you. So we do have to recognize that all of these feelings we're going through, very stressful feelings, being uncertain, sad, sometimes depressed, very anxious, some of these feelings are actually normal reactions to a very traumatic situation that we're all living through now. And it's affecting us in many, many different ways. It doesn't discriminate. Some people say we're all in the same boat. I prefer to say we're all in the same storm. We have to deal with it through different circumstances. But I haven't met anyone who isn't being affected, especially by this unprecedented uncertainty. If we knew that this was going to last for a couple of months and then it would be over, if we knew exactly what we were dealing with, we would weather the storm and be over. So the life is tough is to do with what we're going through at the moment. The I'm tougher is going to be how we cope with it. The resilience that we have developed with challenges in the past, that we have to mobilize now in the future, and possibly even what can we learn from this time and how can we harness those lessons to improve our present and our future positively at the end. So we will get through it, but it's a really tough journey. We thought in the beginning, you know, this is going to be a sprint, a short period of time, there'll be lockdown. I think no one really had an idea of what we were in for. This is a marathon, and it's a marathon of note, the long haul. So we have to talk about what do we have to find within ourselves and between each other that is going to help us know that although life is tough, we are definitely tougher.
But what makes this pandemic different to global historical challenges?
You know, it's interesting, David, because you do get many speakers, well-known speakers, icons, people like Simon Sinek, for example, that a lot of people follow on leadership, who comes out and says, look, you know, it's not, we talk about unprecedented, it's not so unprecedented. We've had lots and lots of challenges that have required us to be creative, to be innovative, to reinvent ourselves. The new word now that everyone is using now, particularly in a business sense, pivot. Are you pivoting? Almost like a kind of demented ballerina that is turning round and round on the stage. And what he's referring to is that with things like, for instance, a Starbucks coming in and taking over the way coffee used to be served, Uber challenging the taxi industry, for example, the internet, a big, big, huge shift, required a lot of thought and different ways of how we do things. And so he's saying, guys, look, we've had lots of challenges before. What did we do? We've done it before, we'll do it now. But why I say this is different is because how I started is absolutely uncertain. You know, in the beginning of this pandemic, David, I was asked to relate and to prepare something that my partner and assist the doctors who were or who were going to be on the front line of this and their challenges. And when I started speaking to the doctors, that actually hit me like a ton of bricks of what we were all going to be dealing with, sort of epitomized by them. They said, you know, Dory, one told me I was at 9/11, as traumatic as it was. We knew what we were dealing with. We knew it was going to be over. We knew how many people we had to deal with. You know, this way, it's relentless. They don't know when it's finished. It's going on, and you can get sick in the process as well. So you're putting yourself on the line every time you follow your own drive and your purpose, which is, of course, that's your calling. It's not, there's no alternative. They show up no matter what, but they show up with that kind of feeling of what they're doing to themselves at the same time. Many of them are isolated because they can't live with their families. So their families have had to move away or they move away, which means that filling up time, that hug that you get from your child at the end of the day, maybe a partner saying, you know, how was it? You just unbelievably stressed. Sometimes they have to turn to each other with joy and with gratitude. They turn to each other for support and even other things. They were saying, like, you know, for the first time, we have to do another job. We have to be the family of those who are sick. Sometimes they're people who we have just met, who might be very ill, who might not even make it, and who is holding their hand. It's not their families that should be around them and be with them this time as us. So there are so many differences that are unusual and represent new challenges. And just, you know, it's really the uncertainty that is making this difference and is generating all kinds of very extreme emotion, obviously to do with stress and to do do with sadness, sometimes even to do with anger, and I haven't even mentioned fear, the fear that is pervasive. So it's almost like, you and I were talking, and we mentioned the fact that we used to talk about global warming. That was very common, and I think it still will be
Correct. Yes.
going forward. Yes, David, but now there's another term which is really real. We're talking about global mourning. The fact that we have left the world as we knew it. We can't see, it's like being in a turbulent sea. We can't see the shores of the new world properly. We don't know what we're going to be dealing with, and as I said, how long. And mourning always comes when there's loss. When there's grief and when there's loss, then there's mourning. And look at what we've lost. We've lost predictability, we've lost certainty. Many people have lost money, we have lost jobs, we have lost physical contact with people who we love. We've lost that connection that we used to take for granted during, say, family meals or places of worship where everyone was just there and we enjoyed that feeling without giving it a second thought. And people are even saying, I've lost my identity. And I remember saying to one of the leaders, what do you mean? And he said, I don't even really know who I am anymore because I've had to behave in many uncharacteristic ways. He was a leader. He had to do things like cut salaries and retrench people, which absolutely wasn't who he was and didn't sit well with him at all. And so, as well as the environment, he had to come to terms with behaviors that he didn't even recognize himself. So all of these things represent the kind of mourning that we're going through. And we've seen within ourselves and within each other and the world the kind of stages that wonderful writer who writes about grief and stages of grief very well known, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She initially spoke about 5 stages that didn't happen in a predictable way, could have bits of one, then bits of the other, but they were usually there, almost like scaffolding. And then later on, there was a 6th stage, which was added by someone else to talk about. But the 5 stages, we've seen them all. Denial in the beginning. Do you remember when people were saying in the beginning, David, oh, don't make such a fuss, it's only flu. People are overreacting. We're going to get over it so quickly. People didn't want to kind of face the onslaught of what this was going to be. So, of course, there was denial in the beginning. Then anger, and anger always manifests when people feel out of control. We as human beings, and especially as leaders, very much like to feel that we're in control of our behavior and in control of the environment. And we get very thrown when we're not. We have sayings like 95% of what happens, 5%, sorry, of what happens.
Yes, 5%, yep.
If 5% is luck, fate, or circumstance. If we take care of the 95%, the 5% will take care of itself. So we say we need to be in the driver's seat of our lives. If we don't like the circumstances, change it. But now we've had to realize that there are things, big things, huge things that are actually out of our control. We can only control so much. And we've had to begin to realize that what we can control is our responses to what is happening. But we can't control what is happening and take it all away. So that has generated a huge amount of anger. And then after that, when the anger sort of calms down, there's the reality of what we're going through and the sadness. The sadness of the loss, the sadness of the loss of so many things, the sadness of what this pandemic, both mental and physical pandemic, is doing to, I always say that out there is now in here. It was out there somewhere in China, not to say that it wasn't sad, but it was kind of removed from us. Now it's in here. You can't make a call anymore without the person on the other side saying, "Did you hear about so and so?" Or "Let me tell you what's happened with my mother or my grandmother." Or "I'm so concerned with what's happening at my child's school." It's become right in our own lives, and together with that feeling of helplessness, there is the sadness. So we've got denial, we've got anger, we've got sadness that comes with it. And then, of course, we also have to engage in a level of acceptance of it, that this is here to stay and for a while. And when we begin to accept the reality of it, that's when we start making some positive changes. To say, look, I can't do business the way that I used to because the world isn't as it is. We have to come together. We have to share ideas. We have to be reminded of our central purpose. Is the purpose the same or not? And if it is the same, how can we achieve that purpose in a different kind of way? And so there is an energy that is a force energy. It's a have to energy that is being mobilized to say we can't just sit and wait for this to be over. The life is tough, yes, but I'm tougher. We have to engage with what we've got and try and see how we can make a difference. So there are all of those things that we are having to deal with right now and recognize.
Thanks for unpacking that. But also in the midst of all of this, leaders now are also experiencing something that we never thought we'll experience, the relationship issues. People are now struggling because of this lockdown with relationship issues. Do you mind just sharing with us on how do we come out of this lockdown or this difficult time and maintain relationships? Because if the truth be told, a lot of people have divorced. A lot of people have lost their loved ones because they could not handle this tough situation, maybe because they were in denial, anger, as you said, maybe they never accepted, their situation. Share with us on why these relationship issues are a menace to us at this time.
Look, how much time have you got to talk about relationships? Because it's affected relationships in many ways. And in fact, let me start by saying in some ways positively. In some ways, there's been a very positive effect. This whole thing has been like an incubator, David. It's been an accelerator, an enhancer of issues that were there before, personal issues and relationship issues. So, for instance, if you were an anxious person, the likelihood through this time would be that you'd be feeling more panicked and anxious than you were before. Just accelerate your usual way of being. In relationships, we joke about it, but it's true. We say for better, for worse, but not for lunch. There you are with
I'm sorry, just say that again. Say that again.
We say for better, for worse, we do the marriage vows, okay, but not for lunch. We don't put up our hands for 24/7. And in the usual course of relationship, you have worked out a balance of kind of closeness, but not distance. You want, but closeness, but not intrusion, is what I'm saying. You have space, but not distance. There are parts of the day where you come together and connect, and there are parts of the day where you go off doing your own work or your own thing. If the relationship is strong, where there's a sense of continuity and where there's a sense of security, then it sustains autonomy. It sustains saying, go out, have a nice time. You accept that people have other people in their lives, like friends or work that might be important. Now, this way, you are sort of banding together and you have an opportunity in a positive sense to kind of meet the person, to kind of clear the air if there was an unresolved issue that required a courageous conversation. If there's been an elephant in the room that you haven't been able to discuss, sometimes a herd of elephants that have built up, you can use it as an opportunity to gently broach something and to say, look, we've got the time now. We need to unpack this. We need to develop clean space between us. There's an issue which is making the space murky. But I learned the hard way about this. I was encouraging people just to do this without too much thinking about it in the beginning. If the relationship is tenuous, tough, if there are these issues between, you can also spark things that are hard to control. So there have been times that if you open up this issue without having the skill of really listening to the other person, by being, if you're very defensive or blaming, it can accelerate into something that you couldn't imagine. And then, someone said, my goodness, I'm telling you, at the end of this, I'm out of here, and I don't only mean out of my house either. It's made me realize that there's no way that I'm going to stay in this. So the divorce rate has definitely, haven't got in our own country, which is South Africa. We're hearing about it. We don't have statistics, but in other countries, we know for sure that the divorce rate has increased. What we do know is that there's definitely been an increase in gender-based violence,
Yep.
especially for sure, look, and it's to do with the way sometimes the differences between the way men and women handle stress. I'm looking at you looking very suave and debonair and, like a real leader and in control. When you are feeling uncertain and low and sad or whatever, it's unlikely that you're going to phone a friend and say, I'm having a bad hair day, come over for a chat. So men need to be strong. They don't own their vulnerability. Often when they're uncertain or scared or hurt or feel dismissed, their way of discharging that behaviorally is through anger. Sometimes anger acting out, or sometimes depression acting in. But in the strong way, in anger acting out, you often take it out on the person who's there or on the person that you connect to. That sense of unbridled frustration and lashing out, that's not to say there is not ever an excuse. But it would be very difficult for a lot of people to say what I'm really feeling is so uncertain. What I'm really feeling is inadequate. I don't know how I'm ever going to provide for us again. And so it gets manifest. And especially in a time where your movements are really restricted, you can't go down and have watch some sport with a friend or meet in a bar and have a beer. There's no alcohol that's allowed. So there you are with this building sense of frustration in an enclosed space, often surrounded by lots of kids where you never put your hand up to the teacher and not really knowing how you can understand and deal with feelings. So, David, the understanding and dealing with feelings is very, very important. Really very important.
So Dr. D, how can you suggest maybe give us coping skills to maintain sanity and connectedness? Whether it's in relationship as a leader or your business is going through unpredictability, you've laid off people, there are no jobs, just provide coping skills during this time so that we are maintaining sanity and also the connectedness.
Look, I definitely can provide some sort of sense of direction. What I wish when I hear you is I wish that I could say to my wonderful friend David Molapo, look, just a minute, here's a magic wand. I'm pulling it out of my pocket and I'm going to wave it and we'll all know how to cope. It's not as easy as that, but there are certain guidelines. The first one, in terms of the feelings, is counterintuitive. What that means is that we need to behave in a way that's quite opposite from what we usually do. So what do we usually do when we feel very stressed or when we feel sad or when we feel fear? What we usually say is, look, especially because I've been saying they're quite normal reaction to a traumatic situation. So we rationalize to ourselves and say, look, It's just for today. I'm going to feel better in the morning. Let me push it away. Let me get it out of let me douse it down. I'll push it down, push it under the carpet. And what often happens is that our emotional carpet start looking like the Alps after a while because there's so much stuff that's pushed under it and it becomes very, very bumpy. So the first thing we say is you've got to lean into those feelings, which is, of course, what a lot of people don't want. So we say if you name it, you can tame it. If you feel it, you can heal it. If you face it, you can embrace it. So that means, okay, stop. What am I feeling? I recognize the feeling. And before it becomes overwhelming, I'm going to name it. So I am having a bad time. I am really scared. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I feel sad about my family and about the world and whatever else is happening. Now, what happens when you do that? It's really very interesting, is that you move from your primitive brain, which is the emotional center of your brain, amygdala, where you tend to react. It was designed for a reason. It was designed for fight or flight. When you feel emotion, you respond and you're either going to run away. It's kind of instant. And so we react instead of respond. What we want to do is have adult capacity to be responsive rather than reactive. So the minute we name it, we are moving into the thinking part of the brain, the survivor part of the brain, which is the thinking part, which is the neocortex. And the minute we do that, when we move to the neocortex, we actually also create a gap, a little gap between stimulus and response. And it's in the gap that we think. So instead of just reacting or, dousing it down and being overwhelmed with terrible consequences, if we become overwhelmed by the anxiety or the fear, we develop physical symptoms, sleep disturbances, appetite problems, behavioral problems like acting out, and low frustration tolerances, and psychological, emotional problems like we're talking about, where you just respond in irrational ways. But when we recognize those things in the thinking part of the brain, and we see the big red stop sign and it says stop, think, we develop the capacity for control of those kind of feelings. And then we can stop ruminating and catastrophizing, because we catastrophize. Our brains run away with us. What if this? What if that? Look what's happening. The world will never be the same again. I'll never have a job again. My kids will never get back to school again. And we throw ourselves very often into the future without the capacity of thinking of the present, being in the present in a mindful way, thinking of the real fact. And sometimes I say to people, when you recognize that you're in this state, take a breath and say to yourself, what would I tell my friend? If I was talking to a friend, what message would I give them? Realistic message to help them be factual, not in denial, but be factual and be able to calm down and get into the real reality of the situation. So that's one of the first things that we have to do to prevent ourselves from being overwhelmed. And then there are other things, very, very important things, David. One of the really important things is that we have to practice self-compassion. We have to take care of ourselves. We often think that we've got it better
But
than anyone.
let me interrupt you there, because as you expand, also touch on compassion fatigue, because it is true that we must have self-compassion, but sometimes we lack the importance of self-care. We do have the compassion, but we end up, being tired. So also, as you explain the other one of compassion, help us also on how to avoid compassion fatigue. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, the compassion fatigue, I think, actually is related to a lack of self-compassion. because very often, I think this is what you're talking about, because correct me if I'm wrong, because what happens sometimes is that we have a sense of responsibility, especially, might I say, there are some gender differences. I know that I'm generalizing. But for instance, if we take the kind of common way of being of women, women who are reared a lot to be nurturers and caregivers, which is wonderful. You don't want to mess with that role at all. It's a wonderful role. But very often they leave themselves out. So
Correct.
they say yes, they really mean no. They don't understand that it is both and. I mean, I need to recognize and honor your, but if I can start building up resentment to you, if I feel different in the inside to the way that I'm behaving on the outside, there's not supposed to be that gap. So you're supposed to say, look, can I ask for help? I need a little bit of time out. There are two of us, or three of us, or four of us, in this house or in this relationship, not only one. I need a little bit of a break for half an hour. Or will you help me? You know, if you just keep doing and doing because you feel guilt, if you're not offering yourself all the time in terms of yourself and your time and your energy and your resources, that's when you start getting exhausted. And then again, the consequences can be dire because sometimes he or she or a child or a situation presses a button. And the whole thing, because you've never dealt with it honestly, you've had this whole build-up that just explodes. It could be a little thing that says, right, it's almost like the same dynamic as road rage, David. No one goes on the roads and says, today I'm going to take someone out. But
That's
if
true.
you've had a build-out of being dismissed or denigrated or unrecognized, and you haven't had the capacity to recognize the feelings and to express them and to ask for help and to do what I'm going to talk about now, the importance of connection and empathy with another person, you act it out in mode. And so that kind of compassion fatigue happens when you feel that you're in this thing called life on your own, that you are offering and offering and offering, and you don't know how to ask for yourself or to take care of yourself. And there are ways of doing it. We're very on every television, you'll see the importance of sleep, very important. Nutrition, very important. Exercise, very important. Those are the three extremely important things. Routine, finding a routine that works for you. Those four things, very important for self-compassion. But also the other important thing is emotionally, is being able to recognize your need, your feeling, what has triggered them, and say that it's not weak. In fact, it's being strong. I am looking after, let's say if it was you, David, you're looking after your partner's partner. You're looking after your partner if you take care of yourself. You're looking after your children's father by looking after yourself. You're looking after your colleague, or your employee's boss. If you don't make yourself, it's like that statement on the plane, put on your oxygen mask first
Mm.
before you take care of other people. Because if you can't breathe, you're useless. So the importance is for you, and the importance is for keeping sane and strong so that you can be what you need for other people as well. And there was just a lovely saying about it from Dr. Carissa Cola Estes once she wrote. I loved what she said. She said, take care of yourself like you would a younger person that you love. With
Mm.
that love and regard that you have for a younger person, the compassion that you would have for them, look after you as if you were that. So maybe it's not quite like that, but it reminds us of how important we to ourselves and to look after us. And then, there's that funny thing that's happening now. It's called comparative suffering. You've
Mm.
seen it, I've seen it. people are feeling extremely guilty because they're saying, at least I've got food on my table, a roof over my head. How can I complain about anything? I mean, I can say my son has studied very hard with 1 year of coming down and for 4 years and just was really looking forward to graduation. Graduation isn't happening. It's a
Yep.
pity. And someone else can turn around and say, how can you even say that when there are children in the who are starving? And so people were feeling guilty about, their own issues because there were always a lot of people who had it worse. And this notion of comparative suffering is really interesting. What it says, David, is that compassion is not finite. Compassion is infinite. It's big. It's very, very big, and it goes on and on. There's no end to it. So what that means is if your loss and your issues are your own, you do not need to feel guilty about recognizing them and looking after yourself, because it doesn't mean that you've got less to give or less to care for others. It doesn't mean if I feel a bit disappointed that of issues that I'm going through, that I can't have immense compassion and regard and wish to help a whole lot of other people who are really less fortunate than you. You can absolutely do both, and you can look after yourself. It's compassion is infinite. It's not finite. Not like
I like that. I like that. Now, talking
yeah.
about that positive stuff, what is the difference in that situation? What is the difference between positivity and optimism?
Okay. I do want to talk about that. Just before though, I just want to say something maybe afterwards. Let me answer your question first. The positivity and optimism is important because right at the beginning of this pandemic, you remember we were all getting these WhatsApp and these emails that said, you've just got to look on the bright side. There are dolphins in the canals of Venice. The skies have never been bluer because there's no smog. There have been priority shifts. But at the end of all of them, it was saying, stay positive, stay positive, stay positive. And I found quite quickly that what that was doing is that it was making people not own the real fears and things that they were feeling now. They just felt, no, I mustn't say that, it's not positive enough. Everybody is saying you're just only allowed to talk about the things that are positive. And that wasn't fair and it wasn't real. So positivity, there is a place for positivity, but it's got to be realistic, not kind of in a way of not accepting that there are a hell of a lot of things that are not positive. People dying all over the world are not positive. And it doesn't help to put a positive slant on it. To say that it's meant to be, or, the person wouldn't have been well anyway if they survived, or they lived to a ripe old age. Those things are just platitudes. And they cut people off from people don't want to talk. You need to be understood and heard properly. So optimism is more like mindful optimism and realistic optimism that says this too shall pass. Because I do believe this too shall pass. We're not going to be in this forever. And if you can maintain that realistic, optimistic worldview, your whole life and the world changes because your belief shape your action. If you believe you're going to get out of it, you start acting in a kind of way that is different. So your beliefs shape your actions create your results, and your results stretched out over a lifetime are likely to become your destiny. So if we talk about, you spoke about, I'm very, very humbled when I listen to that quote of Nelson Mandela. Honestly, I just, it's such a gift and a treasure to me that he said those words about me. But I remember working with and talking with someone else who was very central in the struggle, who was Ahmed Kathrada. And I said to him, how did you survive all of those years? Robben Island and everything. He just said, we were still fighting the same struggle. It was just in a different place. So the belief that they were going to win the struggle was that optimistic world that was still there. If you look at Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camp, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. When he was here in South Africa very, very many years ago, and I was privileged to be in the audience, stood in front of that audience and surveyed the audience. And I thought, oh my goodness, this man has forgotten how to start, because I was a very new speaker. And he was just quiet. And then he looked at them, said, looked at us as I was there, said, the reason that I survived the concentration camp was you. I've never met you before. I've never said these words before, but in my dream, I said these words 1,000 times. Wow. And he said that what kept him going was that belief that one day he had to tell the story. He was going to tell the story, and he was going to survive. Whatever they did to him on the outside, he was going to survive. And so that was the thing that he said that would never ever take away. That is the epitome, the light at the end of the tunnel that isn't the lights of an oncoming train. As Sigmund Freud always said, you need someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. Knowing that however bad it is now, there might be something different. You will regain yourself maybe a little bit different, but something different at the end of the journey. And that belief encourages you to continue and to move on without denying, by saying, no, don't talk like that because of it. So that's the difference.
Thank you so much. We have three more questions. We often talk about, that's question number one, before we wrap up, with our special guest, clinical psychologist, Dorainne Weil, known internationally as Dr. D. Post-traumatic stress. How can we move from post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic growth? Can we actually grow during this time?
Yes, we can. But as I said before, if you want to author the end of the story, you have to first own the story. So, it's the prevention of the post-traumatic stress and how we take care of ourselves through this time that will prevent the onset of long-term post-traumatic stress and give us the possibility of post-traumatic growth. So one thing that will help prevent the post-traumatic stress is the connection with other people. The very, very important through this time. I spoke about the doctors. They say that they're having to use, or they're wanting to use each other more as a support system than they ever have. Because when they walk into the hospital, they see the fear in each other's eyes. They know the experience that they had only yesterday. And that emotional connection is bringing them together in a way, sometimes without words, but often with words they could read. So one of the things of the prevention of post-traumatic stress is to actually know the healing power of support. And that's scientific. There have been lots of books that have been written about that if you have support and love in your life, you actually get sicker less often and better more quickly. Very well-known people, Dr. Ornish, Dean of Medicine, has written a book called Love and Survival. So having support in your life, finding your tribe, and your tribe can be a tribe of one or two or three, but someone who will listen to understand, not listen to respond, not listen waiting for the next thing that they can say, listening to see inside your heart and to see inside your head and to recognize what you are feeling like. This is really tough for you, going through a really tough time. You're not sure where to go. So connect with the person. Now, the prevention of post-traumatic stress will influence of whether you have the capacity to talk about the journey that you've been going through, and some support in your life to share the journey. Where there is a lot of post-traumatic stress after terrible times, like what happened here in South Africa, or like after wars where people just had to suck it up and carry on and be strong, we see the rebounds afterwards, sometimes for years to come. A lot of it is because there was never the opportunity to own it and process it and get the kind of support that we know is really, really, really necessary. So what could be, having had that kind of empathy, what could be some of the things? Well, there's a priority shift, definitely. David, people are stopping, they're taking stock, they're reevaluating their goals. They're saying, where have I been? Where am I going? What's important and how do I want to spend my energy from now on? And a lot of the time they are valuing relationships, which may have always been there, hasn't really valued the same extent. So almost everybody who I'm talking about, when I say, have you gained anything from this? They say, I've gained gratitude. A new sense of gratitude to God for what I have. Sometimes it's things and it's circumstances. I mean, I can say to you, living in South Africa, I never even knew that there was such a thing as winter sun in South Africa because I never sat there. I can tell you. Winter was cold. I was out and about. I found my little patch of winter sun, and I can't tell you the joy of sitting in that warm. That was there all the time. But in all these years when I was so busy and running around, I never saw it. That's a tiny thing. The biggest gratitude is for relationships and for people who were there, family connection and other connection, for your tribe that I've been talking about, for the fact that although we might be, we talk about physical, social distance,
Distancing.
it doesn't
Yes.
have to be extreme physical distance. We can still connect. It's not the same. It's not the same as the hug. But this we can physical distance without social distancing. Still have the connection. Lucky that we've got that kind of technology. Then people are saying that they're getting a new realization of balance, a humility, being humble about that not everything is in their control, about what is and what isn't control. And I've got to get that kind of balance between what I can influence and what I can't, and how I choose to influence the things that I can and accept the things I can't. And it's almost sounding like the alcoholic prayer, accept the things I can't and the wisdom to know the difference. But it's really true, that kind of balance. And then people are saying that they're feeling a more connected member of the human race. There is this sense that, my goodness, this pandemic has not discriminated. We are all in it together. And that's making us more connected. It's also giving us, hopefully, more of a sense of responsibility. Because our term Ubuntu, which means I am who I am because of who you are, this interdependence, needs to also work in a very broad sense. If you are irresponsible and don't take care of yourself, do social distancing, wash your hands, wear a mask, you are affecting me. I can be affected because you are, both in a very positive sense and in an unfortunate sense. So we all are really recognizing this extreme connection that we in this thing called life together. And it's making us patient because we can't really accelerate it. And the last thing that I think we're realizing is that whole question that we used to say, when somebody expressed their goals or their dreams, often we used to bring them down and we used to say, face reality. Face reality. That's not possible. Be realistic. Well, we've stretched what we think reality is now. We don't even really know what reality is now. And always, when I talk about this, I think of that wonderful story of the famous violinist. It's that Perlman, who in one of his famous concerts, which were very well renowned, he had, I'm sure you know the story because you're nodding, he was struck with polio when he was very young. So he walked with calipers on his leg. And he would start off from the wings of the concert. By the time he got to the center stage in front of the orchestra, everyone would very, very quiet. And then he would have to undo the calipers and place the one leg on top of the other physically, and then pick up the violin, nod at the conductor, and play. And this, I'm fast forwarding it a bit. The point of it was, during this one wonderful concert, he was about 6 or 7 minutes into this violin symphony when the orchestra heard like this, a crash like that. And it sounded to them like a gunshot. And they thought, there was this collective breath of OMG, what has happened here and what's going to happen. They realized quickly that one of the strings of his violin had that. So then you look to reality, David. Reality. Because that audience either conducted you, everyone knew that you can't play a violin with strings. You have to have four. But the thing is, at that moment, it's like Pullman, that. And he nodded at the conductor again. And the conductor, went like this. What are you talking about? And he nodded, as if, please just carry on. So he started conducting this. And what the audience heard was music that they had never heard before. He had to recompose it. He had to modulate it. He made that instrument emanate sounds that they had never ever experienced. They all felt as one. They were sharing this, something that was not real, that was out of this world together. And at the end of it, when they all stood up and applauded, he put up his hand and said, sometimes it's up to the artist to play with everything you have. And then sometimes it's up to the artist to play with what you have there. And what came out of that is, your music is still inside you. Don't leave this earth with your music still inside you. And don't let anyone say it's not possible or it's not realistic or you can't. And your whole organization, from the time that I've ever met you, you have epitomized the name of your organization, which says I can. And that's what you live by, and that's what you teach other people about possibility and about the journey of getting there, not in a magical way, in a way that owns the story, that develops skills, that recognizes and has the belief that you can. And so that's why I just so love working with you and being with you again.
Well, two more questions. Two more questions before I let you go, because we still want to work together. The second question, and then the last one, then we'll be done for this session. If people want to get a hold of you, do you mind giving us your website so that they can be able to use your services? Because you do, as I said, keynote addresses. You speak to families, leaders, women, men. That's the last question I'm going to ask you on the next session there. But today you blessed me with this statement. You still have music in you. That's powerful. That is powerful. Sure. That's my take. I mean, I've got a lot of things. I know the viewers here all over the world probably are getting some wonderful nuggets, but the last statement, you still have music. Don't give up. Don't quit. Because if you're not growing, you are dying. Life is tough, but I'm tougher. So the question, if people want to get a hold of my friend Dorainne Weil, Dr. D, the clinical psychologist, please give us a website where they can check up on you, use your services. Where can they check you up?
Sure, thank you. It's www.dorainneweil.com. So, and I've just revamped it. So please visit me on my website, DORINNEWEIL.com, www.dorainneweil.com. And I'm quite happy if you would like my email address too. I love to hear from people. David, sometimes we finish these things, and I know that you have experienced that as well. And we press leave meeting. And then, there's no one in the room because we're all working from home. And I have that feeling that I want to phone my friend David and say, how was it? Did you get something out of it? But, for those moments, there's kind of no one there. So I would be grateful for people to give me feedback and connect with me. My email address is Dori, DORI, @DorainneWeil.com. Dorainne@dorainneweil.com. Welcome to make contact.
And we'll make sure at the end of the program, we still give those details. And remember, the very same program is pre-recorded, will be on various platforms. We will let the people know. So you'll start seeing emails coming from all over. The last question. Next month, you and I are going to be doing something for women. Please give us the topic or the topic on what we're going to be dealing with next month. Go ahead.
David Molapo, he springs things on me because
I want to
he knows
squeeze
that
as much as I get.
Look, I'll tell you what I would like to do for women.
Yes.
You know, we need to give it some thought, but I'll tell you what, I referred to it in the talk. I work with women across the board of every walk of life, from the very, very senior women, from senior women politicians and CEOs to women who are just like all of us, you know, in any sphere. And a lot of us have similar dynamics, irrespective of how successful we've been. You know, it's we kind of prescribed of how women are supposed to. And I said earlier that sometimes we are influenced by a lack of personal entitlement. We look after men very well. We look after children very well. We serve our colleagues very well. We understand that our value, a lot of our value is to do with serving other people. And as I said before, that is absolutely nothing wrong with it. But the thing is that unless you recognize yourself, you know, one of the best statements I ever heard about this was from Michelle Obama. She was talking to a group of women on one of her trips, and she was lovely. She said, I've got to recognize in my life, my brothers, my uncles, my father, who always never made me doubt that I wasn't good enough. You know, they made me feel that I was capable, and they made me feel that I was beautiful and that I was competent. And at the end of that little statement, she said, so it was obvious that I was going to marry someone who was at least my equal, you know. And she just had this sense of self and value. And so often for women, we have to fight for it. And so what happens is we become aggressive. We submissive, we say yes when we say no. Then we've had enough, and then it explodes. And then women have these huge memories. Do you remember that time? 5 years, 3 months, and 1 week ago when and the poor guy, you know, turns around and said, listen, I think you wrote, scripted, starred, and directed your own movie because I don't know what you are talking about. I wasn't even there. And that's because they don't deal with things along the way. So the first thing is personal entitlement and how you get it in a quiet, assertive way by honoring other people at the same time without being either aggressive or submissive. Then how do you communicate your needs when you know that you're entitled to have them, recognizing the need? How do you embrace vulnerability, which I think is very, very important, because vulnerability is important for authentic connection. And basically, it's the movement from the development of a personal regard to being empowered enough to own and make sure that you decide how you will and will not be treated, and you get treated with dignity, and how you get your own respect.
Well, they might stay tuned. They might stay tuned to my friend. We're going to be doing this live during Women's Month, and it will be broadcast all over. Thank you so much for your precious time. You are precious to me and to many people. The nuggets you've given us today, you encouraged us. It is true that encouragement is like oxygen to the soul. You gave us a lot of oxygen today, and I pray that people watching this program will get in touch with you. We will warn them on the next program for women, another program for men. And remember, Dorainne Weil, Dr. D, will be one of our keynote speakers during the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of September, where we celebrate the 20th annual I CAN Leadership Summit. There'll be a CEO from Verizon, Protivity, a lot of other people, but our own Dr. D will be one of the people in the panel. She'll be speaking. She'll also be conducting a panel discussion. And once again, thank you so much, Dr. D. Until we meet again, God bless. So remember, You might be going through a tough time today. You have learned some practical nuggets. Life is tough, but I'm tougher. Until next time, see you with I Can Conversations with David Molapo. God bless.
Thank you very, very much. It was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.